Hi there, I'm bored. And because you clicked on this video, I guess you must be too. After all, it's rather hard to have the time of your life while you and almost everyone in the world is still stuck at home trying to not get one-shotted by germs. Speaking of, this is why a few months ago I was thinking back at what game I could play in order to kill some time. Because hey, that was the only possible thing to do. Or at least that's what I kept telling myself to justify my laziness. So, 2 minutes I went into this intense reflection, I remembered a really cool game that I used to play as a child. A really intense, fast paced, cartoonish, 2D run and gun type of game. Uh, no, oh god, no, not this one. I'm fucking sick of it. Yeah, never mind. Which is actually
Metal Slug.
Yep, this intro never gets old. Kind of. So, for all of you that don't know this game or didn't live in Mexico in the 90s, Metal Slug is a run and gun arcade action game made by NASCAR Corporation and that basically consists in shooting bad guys in a 2D side-scroller format. Okay, I'm not being mean there. It's just that some games, such as Metal Slug and King of Fighters, a game made by SNK Playmore that bought NASCAR later on, by the way, both really took out in Mexico apparently. It was off, not took out, god damn it. Anyway, which will explain why there is so much Spanish comments in most Metal Slug videos I've watched this past month. Which is rather interesting, yet depressing for me, because it reminds me that I can't speak two words of Spanish other than the ones to insult someone's mom. But anyway, as I previously started mentioning, after being done revisiting the first game of the franchise, a strange force within me drove me to play all of the other major entries, and even the Game Boy version, and that's saying a lot. And even though I did binge eat all of them in only a few days, I kept on playing them for months to come, trying to learn and improve myself each time in every game, more than I probably ever did for all of my studies combined after multiple fail exam. And it is only now that, after playing those games during all of my Zoom online classes for one good semester, that I have finally come to ask myself those obvious yet quite vague questions. How the first Metal Slug game made such an impression on me that I kept on playing it again and again as if I was back into my teenage years spamming ranked games in League. What makes this game so addictive despite its, simplicity? Or even more simply put, what makes this game so appealing and good even to this day? The answer to those questions will be, of course, extremely subjective and could easily take more than a few hours to be fully explained. So, this is why I will just try to answer those by simply sticking to analyzing what makes, in my opinion, yet again, the first Metal Slug game special and a classic arcade game. In order to do so, I will comment on the structure of the game regarding its level design by checking out every mission in chronological order, talk obviously about the gameplay, difficulty, tone, atmosphere, music, bosses, and how all of those stuff combined can, make you, as the player, feel really good. Yeah, I'm sorry. A phrase like that, it sounds absolutely filthy. So, what do you say? Even after this little boring introduction, are you still ready to accompany me in this walkthrough, design, gameplay, video analysis of this game? Alright then, so without further ado, let's insert 10 coins from my physical pocket in my absolutely real arcade and definitely not main plus virtual machine, and start blasting. Oh, wait, never mind. The tutorial. How could I ever forget about that? So let's talk control first, the fundamental of every platformers. They are pretty straightforward for a 2D control-like shooter in aspects, but there are a lot of hidden and more subtle information and features that can have a huge impact on the gameplay itself once discovered by the player. So let's take a quick look at them in order of importance. First, the essential. You press the shoot button to shoot the gun you are currently wielding or melee attack infantry if you're close enough. Second, you press the grenade button to throw a grenade. If you're in a vehicle, you shoot the vehicle's own projectile and use up its ammo count. Except in some games, when your grenades are conveniently linked to your vehicle. Isn't that right, Metal Slug 6? That's so practical every time. Third, you can crouch. While crouching, you are in a more comfortable position, so you can shoot your handgun and rip-enter faster the enemy. And also, by extension, make your finger bleed more effectively. Fourth, exiting your slug gives you one incredibly helpful second of invulnerability, but for some reason, only in Metal Slug 1, you don't get one back when entering it, which can definitely lead to some interesting moments when you're too used to the other games. 5. You can jump, and while in the air, you move technically faster than on land, but also because you're faster, it can be really tempting to jump every time to imitate the speedrunners in the Big Boys videos, minus of course the skills that comes with it, leading most of the times to really dumb death. 6, and thank God last one, when you're tired of doing well, you can decide to sacrifice your vehicle to do what's called the Slug Attack for extra damage. Useful when you're in a vehicle and low on health and want to take down a boss quickly. Or to do just like me and misclick all the time by pressing the jump and shoot button at the same time, thus losing the best power-up in the game before a difficult fight. Yeah, I wonder why the not used button could have been used for... Phew, that's about it. Okay, so now let's insert 10 coins, which I think is pretty balanced, taking into account this game's difficulty and the non-existence of extra lives, because of course the game wants you to spend your life savings in it, and finally press start, for real this time. Ah fuck, my binding got reset again, god damn it. Mission 1, an explosive introduction. Alright. We start off straight in the middle of Egypt? Wait, is that thing the Sphinx? Wait, hold on a second. Let me check the wiki real quick. Okay, so the level is apparently called Absolute Thick Forests. Okay, yeah, that's definitely accurate. And takes place in Villeneuve Mount System. What the fuck is that name? Well, at least that's creative. Oh, here it is. Apparently, it's located in Asia. Alright. Okay, thanks for the knowledge, Wiki. I'll sleep more peacefully tonight now that I finally know the name of the level I've been playing all my life. So, anyway, as you can see right from the start, we play as the fearless blonde army guy, deadly soldier and Duke Nukem cosplayer, just parachuted from the sky without safety helmet, no goggles, and ready to take on an entire army base with his gun enchanted with infinity. Yeah, no time for a mission briefing or useless exposition, it's time to kick ass and get demonetized. Thank God for the blood in this version is actually sprite juice. So, the first minutes are really cool. You shoot your way through the enemies, grab the notorious, and enjoy the upgrades in firepower that even you dudes really seem to dig in, kill some generic soldiers in 1 second bullets, and... quickly realize that those generic soldiers can kill you too in 1 hit. Yup, just like in Contra, one wrong move and your super buff looking commando disintegrates himself completely, thus resulting in you losing your current weapon and grenade supply in the process. That's punitive, for sure, but when you think about it, after gulping a few shots of whiskey to better digest the loss of a quarter, you can realize that this type of punishing gameplay really emphasizes the involvement of the player within the game, the importance of reflexes, memorizing every item locations, enemy placements, and their attack patterns in order to motivate him to get better at the game. or the next play session if he runs out of credits and needs to wait for his next monthly salary, thus indirectly heavily contributing to the replayability of the game. But anyway, let's get back to it. The first level is definitely one, if not the easiest level in all of Metal Slug games, and that's normal. It serves as an introduction and tutorial for newcomers to the run and gun type of games, and what better way to do so by conveying a feeling of unstoppable power to them. A mix of power-ups, explosions everywhere, soldiers yelling and blowing up, and without forgetting the upbeat music make you really feel like you are the guy that's about to turn this war over all by himself. This is definitely not intended to siphon every penny out of the consumer's pocket by encouraging him to keep playing, but hey, that's an arcade. The good old pay-to-win of the past, and a great time is a great time, so fuck it. And yet again, losing money can really put a fire under the player's ass and really encourage him to get good to minimize the loss at the end. This is also one of the reasons why I impose to myself every time credit limits in order to somewhat replicate this feeling of intensity and challenge. Otherwise, it can really make the game dull to just play with infinite life, you know? No fun without difficulty, huh? So, after passing through the wreck of a plane with a really nice air-takes fire effects, bringing down single-handedly an helicopter before eliminating any signs of green clone soldiers and yellow bomb carrying dudes in a river, and probably will blow up to pieces all of the innocent natives out in the process, it is time to hop aboard one of the slugs from the good guy army that for some reason was, parked here in the water before plowing through the very sexy yet really deadly rapidly blinking river in order to ultimately fight this plane-based boss thing. But don't worry, slug or not, it's made out of wet tissue. Well, that surely was a bit anticlimactic, but hey, that's just the first one, so that's more than okay, really. Going back regarding the difficulty of the level, which is to some extent equal to the formula of how many power-ups there are minus bullshit enemy placement, the level is filled to the brim with good old bombs, and even an SV001 vehicle. Yeah, that's one you say it, right? Yeah. But yeah, mostly bombs. And as you saw it, it can, it'd be pretty powerful to say the least if you manage to bring back all of them to the end boss. If you can do that, that is. In a way, giving you a normal slug with plenty of explosives and a boss exploding just by simply looking at it for too long can really, show and encourage the player to just not die in order to bring everything to the end, thus adding yet again an intensity and even more tension to the gameplay, leading to the level's first and, final encounter. Alright, it's not totally depicted here because of how easy the level is anyway, but compared to the rest of the levels and the greatly increased difficulty, mostly because of some of the bosses, if you don't have guns nor bombs, you better be confident in your dodging skills. But joke's on you, that's an arcade game, so most attacks are really bullshit anyway and close to impossible to avoid for a first timer. Or me, even after 10 years of playing this. But yeah, let's wrap up this level and continue. Speaking for too long about bringing stuff to the end always triggers what I call my Contra PTSD, when I lose all of my will to continue and also confidence after losing my precious spread shot. Miss you so much. Anyway, that's the end of mission 1. Awesome level, if not for a boss that's even for a tutorial boss a bit too easy. Just dodge a slow spray, stay low, sometimes jump, remember that you have 5 fingers, and if you do not, just don't worry, smash your head against the grenade button and here you go. Mission 2. Good game design, humor, and the importance of super weapons. Hey, look at that, we're parachuting literally through the roof of a train station in London. And come on, check this out. This clock has an animation when you shoot at it. Isn't this little detail super cool? Yeah, I guess I'm finding this cool mostly because it's one of the few interactive background elements in the entire franchise, but never mind. The upcoming section really do make it up for it, don't you worry about that one bit. Oh, and something I forgot to talk about. You see this guy? This hippie looking dude that looks like he's a time traveler from the 70s and really do regret not bringing with him his natural lotion so he can grease himself out of the flimsy ropes? Yep, he's a friendly military POW. And when you free him by shooting at his ropes that are thankfully sturdy enough to protect him from sudden death, get close enough for him and he will give you something cool. Sometimes it's just a silly item to make some points, simply allowing the player to show up to everyone who has the biggest machine gun in the bar he plays at, or sometimes it is simply enough one of the best, borderline broken gun in the game. Also, they're always giving out the same item in every playthrough, so if you already know all of them from a previous play session, you can pick which POW to leave out stranded in the field and the others to cuddle with you until the dawn of times. Or until you die 5 seconds later, because for some reason this makes the POW count resets. I guess you really couldn't stand losing its savior. Wait, no, that's fucked up. Okay, let's just move on. Other than that, the beginning is pretty straightforward in general. Duck under or jump the electric barrier. Yeah, because of the bugged control, preferably duck, because sometimes a jump in this one will brutally pull you down as if the game suddenly remembers that the soldier cannot do moon jumps on Earth, and then decides to correct it at the best moments every time. Or maybe it only happens to me. That wouldn't surprise me. But despite this little issue, this simple obstacle can easily make the player learn how to crouch walk or duck walk. Yeah, whatever which one you prefer. After this, the bridge section is, how do I put it? Yeah, just extremely interesting. Even though the game guilts you at the very beginning for not saving this cute thing from drowning, this section serves up an incredible plate of good game design flavored with a touch of in-game knowledge to the player. First, there is the introduction of a new type of enemy, the boat full of dudes. Yeah, not the most original idea in the world, but it makes sense based on the setting and player placement. Being an enemy located below the player, which is currently on the boat, this forces him for the first time to practice shooting down to get a better grasp of the inputs, or to even make him learn about this feature if he skipped the tutorial. Even though, who will dare to do such a thing, am I right? Come on. Not impressive enough for you, huh? Don't worry, there's more to come. When the player is done destroying the boat, he is rewarded with a weapon, the rocket launcher. A deadly explosive weapon shooting what I like to call hardware-based projectiles. But there's a catch to it. It spawns in the destroyed boats. So does that mean I could have jumped on the previous boats before destroying it? Wait, there's another one. Let me try this out real quick, No way, you can actually do it. It doesn't one-shot me like everything else does, even though it wouldn't make really much sense. And just with this one weapon placement, the player is able to effortlessly understand and adapt his strategy, thus making the fight more interesting and dynamic, even though the same enemy is simply copy-pasted over and over again. But I'm sure you are still not fully impressed by this section, and this is why I have even more. I can't speak. As I was previously mentioning, the rocket launcher is a deadly yet limited weapon at long range. Fairly precise because of its own projectile, but it takes forever to shoot them. But if the player, and he most likely will, jump on the boat and start shooting at close range, he will then quickly realize how powerful and fast this weapon can be at close range, making him effortlessly yeah, once again, understand how the weapon works, as well as using hardware limitation as a cool way to encourage the player to take risks by getting himself closer to danger in exchange for a better DPS. And also, on the last note, the background is quite nice. That's still something. And here you go, the reasons why this section is so cool and interesting. I hope you find this section interesting too, and that I didn't hype it that too much. Feel free to tell me in the comments if you do. Even though I feel like no one actually does that when the guy in the video asks questions about something and only make jokes to gain likes and ultimately the approval of other people regarding a sense of humor. Whatever your choice, I will like it anyway, Hey, speaking of approval, that's kinda what I'm also trying to do right now, just checking if people share and agree on my viewpoint and jokes, if you can call them that. And we could even say that we will be, in this case, if you do participate in the comments and do the thing I just said, we'll be in the same boat, you and me. Get it? Because we talked about boats. Okay. Anyway, I apologize. Sorry about that. So, without further ado, let's get back on track. Fuck me. So after shooting rockets for 5 minutes straight by being constantly replenished by the boats, the game gives you one final gift. And this is simply the most powerful weapon in the game, the shotgun. And definitely not the flame shot, which should have really been renamed lame shot in this one, because how terrible, weak and disappointing it is damage-wise at least. Thank God they fixed that in the following games. Whew. Anyway, the interesting feature of this gun is that... Oh, wait, why do I hear boss music? Oh no, a boss! Is that you can obliterate everything in front of you. And a huge thanks for that, because otherwise I definitely wouldn't have passed this boss shooting balls at a whopping speed of 5 miles per hour. I guess using the shotgun is more like a bonus than a mandatory weapon to survive this round, but this specific display of an amazing and powerful weapon really making short work of a boss definitely makes the player understand the importance of carefully choosing weapons before a boss fight, and to not do the mistake of picking up the gun from this naked guy too early, otherwise be ready to be disappointed. You're missing out something there. It's not over? Wait, nope. The music changes. We are now in a effing rough part of the city for some reasons. It's game time even, and there's also a new obstacle to go through. And come on, look, this new segment leading to the boss definitely almost feels like a new level or DLC map. It will be, modern times, I guess. So let's continue onward on our quest to analyze and give an extremely deep meaning to every tiny pixel we come across. Speaking of which, this slope right here makes the player realize the importance of the diagonal shot of the edge gun. How's that? Because it is really likely for him to just pick it up, because he will be running low on shotgun shells anyway after the boss, and that he will just aim at the enemy upward, thus making him feel the satisfaction of having the upper hand despite the enemy having the upper ground, showing that one little thing sometimes can make a huge difference in the end. Well, this sentence alone could even sum up the whole plot of the game, so yeah. But now let's check what is up this slope. First, there is a cool introduction of a new type of enemy, with a defense section, yeah, we can call it that. Oh, look at that! This is the exact number of planes in the background that will then come to attack the player, making him able to keep track of the number and better time his attacks. That's awesome! Isn't it a great combination of graphism and gameplay altogether? Okay, now just let's fuck him. Alright, now we're off to the last section. Advance, jump in the slug, continue, meet the boss, look at him in the eyes, proceed to either dodge the washing machine balls they throw at you and frequently jump out of the slug to dodge the missiles, or simply use the easy way out. And mission complete! Nice stage overall, interesting use of its environment with the boat section, surprising with its mid-boss plus the change of scenery it offers, and also the music, which is pretty unique for a mission that isn't the final one in a Metal Slug game. Really cool. It's like the developers had time to polish the game. No? Pretty cool. Mission 3. The importance of mobility and... Wait, isn't this the same music as before? That's a shame. I expected a new one. Not that I'm on this one is really cool and somehow fitting this level too, but because they were all so good, I, just wanted to hear another one. Oh, wait a second. We're still in the title, right? Well, anyway, now the game is getting tougher. This is the moment where the difficulty curve rises like the unemployment rates of the previous year. Soon about it in just a bit. But just before that, let's talk about the mission setting, if we can call it that way. The mission starts off with a vertical climb from the very bottom of a snowy pit, which could be considered kinda weird on a logic standpoint, because there is nothing that significantly important of worth risking parachuting a soldier there. Never mind that this soldier is the freaking leader of the good guy army there, whereas the main enemy base and boss are at the very top. Yeah, that seems ridiculous, but who am I to judge? I'm this one guy going into a mission in the freezing snow with only a flashy red jacket with short sleeves. But anyway, as I was mentioning, there are two major changes that contribute in increasing the difficulty. So for the second time, let's make a list. First, the enemies are more trained, if you can call it that way, than before. Instead of just staring menacingly at you for a good 5 seconds, most of them now almost shoot on sight. Second, the vertical layout of the level definitely adds up to it, by the presence of really tight jumps compared to previous levels. This introduces a new yet very old way of dying: gravity. The implementation of this new environmental hazard emphasizes and encourages the player to carefully use his jumping ability, as well as also teaching him at the same time how long his jump really is with this semi-bullshit bit. Fuck. Third, precision jumps, with the use of perfectly trained soldiers following completely normal attack procedures as obstacles. No need to shoot them, I pity them enough for not wearing gloves. Another place where coordinating your jump is important is with this silly carnival game lookalike, where you're supposed to shoot the button to make the door go up, so you can then try to damage the very conveniently placed TNT barrel, while also, of course, constantly dodging the guy guarding it. I mean, the shots of the guy guarding it, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. Oh, and hold on, if we just pause here for 1 second while we're at it and take a closer look at this fight by going into super far-fetched analysis mode, this one fight can naturally teach the player that crouching makes him shoot faster, because of how really likely for him it will be to crouch and shoot at the same time, because of how the door quickly closes. This, coupled with this conveniently placed enemy defending the barrel, makes for a perfect motivation for the player to hurry up and spam the hell out of the shoot button, as if he was playing against Woody in Friday Night Funkin'. And that, some really good game design here, and mostly because of sneaky and subtle it is teaching the player how to quickly shoot. Now that I'm thinking back about it, this will explain why, since I'm a dumb bab, not that things really change now, I always used to instantly crouch whenever I needed to quickly get rid of a dangerous threat. That's really interesting to think about. It's like muscle memory of something. Who knows? But if you wanna just ignore that and be a dick about everything I just said, you can do like pros do, which is definitely not something I found out on multiple YouTube channels with amazing Metal Slug gameplay that I will heavily recommend you to check out. you can just do that. And voila! You show the game's designer that you can make things even sillier. Is that a word? Yeah, maybe. Anyway, when you're done blowing yourself up, go up, up, and up again, and now, behold, another mid-boss and yet a great and recurrent iconic boss in the Metal Slug franchise. The invincible, ball-laughing dude, I forgot his name. And yeah, the least you can say about him is that his attacks are quite surprising, to not say another word. Once again, mobility is the key to win this fight, and this mid-boss is definitely testing the player on that. Even when you know his attack pattern, it's still pretty tricky to take him down in one life. The strat consists in showing him the power of the high ground while shooting down at him. Or if you're far enough from him, you can also try throwing at him a nice nade. But beware, if you fall too close to him, prepare to get slayed. I should give up on that. Also remember that even though he cannot directly hit you from below because he apparently forgot to bind his lookup key, he can simply pull out a contra out of his ass and just shoot diagonally at you. And yet again, that's really surprising right there. God fucking damn it. Just bear for it until his skin turns into the same color as mine when I played a ranked game of League of Legends and you win the fight. Also too bad you cannot pick his gun, and this one, it's for some reason really biodegradable. There we are, finally at the military base, aka the second and final part of the mission. Here we're back on the horizontal segments, thank god for that, and enjoying the really conveniently placed power-ups that allow us to shred, let me try that again, shred, that's how you pronounce it I think, through the stacked tanks with only a few shots. And yeah, that's some collateral damage for you there. After being done with the base and destroying a massive barrel of TNT resulting in a series of totally calculated events, the whole base blows up and entirely clumbers down, while also flexing its sexy graphics for a bit. And all of that is happening while our brave soldier stays in this cutscene silent and expressionless, presumably listening to the cries of despair and smelling the scent of burnt flesh around him, while also reflecting on the atrocities he just committed. Was diplomacy never an option? Is it right to take the life of human beings to assure peace that's not gonna last until the next game? Why am I encouraged to brutally murder and destroy anything in my path by getting points? Am I real? Oh wait, I'm in a video game, that's right, so screw everything I was just thinking about, nice! Anyway, after your character is done chilling in the rubbles, get yourself into the somehow pristine and conveniently placed slug, confirming that it strangely can only take damage when you are in it, that's weird, and proceed to fight your way to the last boss of the level. Just remember to take the bottom path. It's way easier to avoid projectiles than when you're up there. It's also way faster to take down the enemies from below than jumping around doing minimal damage. Trust me, that will spare you some lives, yeah. Here you go, it's boss time, and one of the most tedious ones to fight too. No big surprise there because it's a running theme of the level, jumping is the key to victory. Whereas it is to dodge the mines, the big surprising laser from the cannon, and to even just simply shoot at the boss, because that's apparently the only way trained elite soldiers do it. Or if you really are reluctant to jump and shoot and still have the slug with you, you know what's coming next. And here you go, mission complete. Definitely an interesting mission that makes you subtly learn about the incredible potential of your moveset. Even though it is only mostly composed of jumping and crouching and also shooting, its possibilities are utilized at 100% in this level. This is teaching the player effortlessly how to do precise jumps to better avoid obstacles, long jump that forces you to notify the speed boost you gain in the air, the shooting speed when... Come on, I activated Bixby. Fuck you, Bixby. I don't need you. Let me... What the fuck? Now I don't want to unlock my phone. Come on, die, please. Anyway, as I was saying, this is teaching the player effortlessly how to do precise jumps to better avoid obstacles, long jumps that forces you to notify the speed boost you gain in the air, the shooting speed when crouching, and then teaching you that during the two bosses. Sort of, kind of, okay, not really. But anyway, now it's time for a new mission, and this one is Mission 4. Nah, I'm not feeling it anymore. You know what, Bixby? You pissed me off. You ruined the pacing. You just, I was so into that, and now you just, come on, you blue balls me. Alright, I think I'm going to take a rest, just, grab something to eat, relax a little bit, and resume the walk tomorrow. Okay, see you in like 1 minute. Mission 4, Environmental Awareness and Other Interesting Things. And fuck. Oh shit, I'm sick of real. Great. You see, that's what only wearing a jacket in the freezing snow will give you. The voice of a teen struggling to go through puberty while also being a chain smoker. And now, anyway, it's time for Mission 4. So, what can I really say about Mission 4? First, at the second city type level, which because of that may make it lose a little bit of authenticity, but it has some charms to it with a more pronounced rural atmosphere. And let's not forget the comeback of this jazzy music that really rocks on. Other than that, on the gameplay's perspective, this one is pretty short and straightforward to analyze. The first striking and interesting element this level teaches the player is the importance of environmental awareness. Yes, I know, we already discussed this in some other forms, whereas it was with the placement of power-ups, bottomless pits, avoiding rare traps in Mission 1 and 2, and knowing your enemies to better prioritize them. But interestingly enough, now it is about the subtle and more finesse way to get to use destructible environments as a way to get to incredibly helpful power-ups. Well, in this level, this little thing I just started to talk about could be interpreted through this conveniently placed barrel blocking the player's path, but also leading him to a sick tank upgrade. And guess what? In order to get to it, you need to do the opposite of what you have been taught to do until now, which is just to shamelessly shoot at everything that exists on screen, and to instead carefully use it as a platform in order to get to the tank. Otherwise, you fucked. If it's destroyed, well, too bad for you. Just play the game again from the beginning. This method is definitely not yet another way to cleverly contribute to the replayability value of this arcade game. But don't worry, the next segment is far from being impossible without it. Tricky? Yeah, definitely. But it surprisingly adapts to the player too. If you're in the tank, the assassin soldiers will try to jump on it to damage it, whereas if you are on foot, they will try instead to just slice the player in half with a knife. And that's definitely cool. Just knowing that the game designer took the time to change the attack animations depending on the player's situation. Or at least don't you think? Because this will reassure me if I wasn't the only one finding this cool to not just see soldiers trying to casually knife a tank to death. Anyway, yet again, after the boss section, we come across another segment using destroyable environment once more, but this time used as a way to drop tanks on the player's head. Now I can understand why this little thing one-shot the player. Yep. If the player is able to notice the small crack within the flimsy rocks barely lifting the tank, he can then quickly ponder what is the right thing to do between 1. Shooting it and making the tank fall, thus forcing the player to dodge the falling tank, but then being rewarded by being able to progress more easily in the level just afterward, or to simply ignore it entirely to avoid taking the risk of being crushed to death, that's understandable, focusing more on the upcoming on-land threat. Nah, I'm just joking. If you shut it down an infinite army of tank would just proceed jumping off one after the other. Just keep going, just ignore that's dumb. And then we proceed to the end of the level, apparently. Okay, we're already at the boss. Alright. For some reason, this level feels extremely short compared to the other ones. Not surprising. Also, big shout out to the game for giving the player a shotgun just before the fight, because that's a fairly difficult one, yeah. Cannon shots coming from the right, forcing you to crouch, but then missiles are coming from below, forcing you to use your total light speed to dodge, and trust me, it never ends well. Yeah, just shotgun spam the one on the right side as quick as possible, get down quickly and repeat the last step for the other. Yeah, just get out of this nightmare as fast as possible. Oh, bonus info while we're at it. If you die, instead of beaming down Starborn-like style when you respawn, you just stiffly parachute down. Don't exactly know the reason, but looks pretty cool and interesting, don't you think? So derpy looking, that's cute. At least, I hope people think the same way when I talk about that during parties. Anyway, yet again, Mission 4 is already done, and I need to take some rest, so now let's do a quick recap. So what important things did we learn from this mission? We learned that paying close attention to the details within the environment and thinking before shooting can reward the player in both upgrades and also sparing him a gruesome death, which is a fairly refreshing lesson compared to the previous missions that were mostly composed of getting good, jumping the right way, and shooting faster than your opponent type of lessons. It's really good that the game varies its level design between missions by adding some little elements that can help the attentive players. And you know what I also learned today? To not record audio while your throat is actively trying to remind you every 5 seconds that you are sick and need to shut the fuck up to actually recover. That's a win-win for you and me. Now it's break time. Ah, great. This shitty flu is now gone. Finally. Whew. And I'm once again ready to pronounce more than 2 words without making my throat bleed. That's awesome. So let's resume where we left off. Mission 5. Mission 4 of the DLC map and the importance of visual storytelling as a way to criticize the war. Okay, now we are at the heart of the city. And in all honesty, by the time I was writing down this video, I really thought there was only 5 levels in this game. That's saying how those two can easily blend into one another. But even though this one is yet again another level taking place in the city, its atmosphere is fairly different thanks to the use of visual storytelling. Yes, I just talked about it 2 seconds ago. As well as 2 other segments providing interesting gameplay elements being once again, yet again, used as lessons to teach the player things. Again, wow. But anyway, the first striking element shown to the player upon entering the level is among its atmosphere. Okay, yes, we still got the jazzy tune, but by now we know that the game likes to associate jazzy with urban setting. Nothing new here. Still, a pretty good track. And what's more about the environment is that for the first time we see... Oh no, yeah. Corpses of civilians laying in the ruins of their own destroyed homes, enemy soldiers chasing defenseless women, and just overall the great act of chaos and genocide the enemy soldiers are committing to those fictional townspeople. Even though until now the game appeared to be a silly 2D shooter centered around, about making points by blowing up say bad guys, the game shows you directly the reason why they truly are the bad guys and why you are fighting in the first place, to save innocent people, and not just only naked hippies of course, in order to finally bring peace to this troubled world. This depiction of human cruelty is able to add a sense of realism to this paradoxically, that's better, cartoonish game, thus serving as a motivation for the player to keep playing, as well as adding to the context of the story something, a bit of story there. Also, these mechs created with the true horror of the war and light-hearted comedic elements here and there are able to create an interesting balance in tone, contributing in making this game stand out more compared to some other games from the same category. And this is probably why I remember this game almost immediately when I try to look back at a good experience from the past. This game really did stuck in my mind. I guess it has to be somehow expected, also due to the fact that that was one of the only games I did play in my entire life, and just before that, I was just playing at Liquid Kids and Super Mario World. So, yeah, no wonder this stuck with me. But yeah, let's switch back to game design mode for a little bit, There is also an interesting segment teaching the player how to dodge projectiles efficiently with precise jumps, let's say, and move gracefully. But this time, in a vehicle, for the little twist. This passage forces the player to keep moving to the right while dodging an infinite number of enemy planes, projectiles. It's similar to the boss section with flying soldiers when you take a closer look at it. Also, you see these granite pickups here in the middle of this orgy of missiles? Even though it only appears to be at first glance a little pile of pixels giving access to 10 explosives once picked up, this can also be considered a little pile of intense thinking upon being seen by the player. Alright, let me try to recreate what my thought process was when I had to deal with this specific situation. I promise you that's something at least, yeah. Grenades. Yeah, that's definitely cool. I definitely could use that for later, or like 1 minute, because I'm pretty sure the boss is nearby. But should I take them with a tank and thus converting them into tank projectiles, or rather taking them on foot and just let me check real quick if the current health of my tank allows me to take them without blowing up in the next 3 seconds. Alright, yeah, I definitely took quite a beating due to those annoying pesky missiles. I really do want to convert them into grenades right now, and not tank projectiles, but it's safer to take them with the tank. Come on, screw this, I'm taking the risk, I'm going to lose something in the end anyway. Wait a minute, I didn't die from that? Getting out makes me invulnerable. This is why it's blinking. This is so awesome. Okay, I know, it feels like I'm overanalyzing this, but this is pretty much how I discovered the existence of invulnerability frames to begin with. No thanks to the tutorial, because of course, apparently that's not important at all according to them. And even though the player might discover the existence of invulnerability frames at any point while playing, when he has a slug, I'm pretty positive that there are some specific moments in this game created as a way to increase the odds of this extremely important gameplay element being discovered by the player, such as, at least I like to think, this moment, for example. It's one of them. Well, anyhow, let's move out of this segment filled with missiles full of far-fetched ideas and finally advance in both the level and the script. The last segment is actually pretty intense in action and definitely deserves a little moment of analysis because of how interesting it is. Or at least how someone with way too much free time like me can't find it that way. In this brief passage, an enormous amount of enemy as well as a tank ambushing the player from behind are used as a clever way to heavily motivate him to use the famous restart technique instead of casually fighting. The fact that the player is likely to still be in a slug and thus incapable of turning around to use his primary cannon, as well as him now aware that the wall in front of him can rather be easily destroyed because of its previous introduction a little while ago, definitely encourages him to flee instead of fighting. This ensures a really fun moment where the player, out of surprise and fright of being for the first time literally ambushed, tries its hardest to get away from this situation and as fast as possible. Also, a little bonus mention there. If the player did not know that he could throw grenades while in a slug by crouching, the enemy projectile from behind him would force the player to duck and thus realize that he was able to do that all along, and thus contributing once more to the replayability of the game and yada yada yada. You know the rest by now. And look, just as I expected, the boss is here now. Thank God the tongue behind me is as good at chasing someone as the soldiers in Assassin's Creed 3. Wait a second. This one looks familiar. Isn't this one from Metal Slug 2? Or maybe it was X, I think? But wait, isn't X just a graphical remake of Metal Slug 2 because of how the performances turned the game into a constant slow motion from Max Payne? But wait, then if it was a remake and thus had to be a better and more fresh version of the original, right? Why did they then copy-paste the same boss from the first game? It seems a bit, counterproductive. Wait. Oh, wait a second. I think I'm starting to better understand SNK now. You had it in you from the very beginning, huh? Metal Slug Attack and all. I see what you did there. Anyway, it doesn't really matter to what we're talking about currently, so yeah, let's get back to the main subject. This boss is really good and offers quite a dynamic fight too. The flashy spray is slow yet challenging to dodge because of how close the projectiles can sometimes be to each other. Its flamethrower forces the player to keep his distance from it, preventing him to simply camp close to it, thus also reducing his space to dodge the projectiles. But what is really great about this boss is the possibility to use different strategies to take it down. Yes, you heard me right. You can either choose to destroy its main cannon to get under it and take cover from the spray, while also getting access to some cool supplies and get absolutely destroyed by this new bullshit missile coming out of seemingly nowhere. Thank you, game that teaches me for praising you. Or you can also not take any risk and keep shooting at it from afar and wait for it to explode. Whatever suits your fancy and playstyle. Alright. Now that this thing is down, Mission 5 is now complete. Once again, for the 5th recap in a row, great level, thanks to a lot of great elements too. Makes sense really. The addition of visual elements portraying a gruesome image of the war do an incredible job at motivating and also justifying the reasons behind the actions of the player to keep on slaughtering everything in his path. Pretty cool. And the other being that the player's ability to move is once more put to the test, but this time in a vehicle to keep things a bit different, as well as his ability to make quick decisions too, for a little bit at least. And on a side note, I also now better understand why this boss was reused in X, due to the two different ways and tactics that can be used in order to take it down, which make the boss interesting to fight multiple times. Final mission. The final exam and more of the story. And now it's time for the bouquet final, the climax of the game and aka the most dreadful moment for your wallet. This is the Final Showdown, and nothing announces more than this awesome music and wait, hold on, just rewind a second real quick, and would you look at that? Allies, and in Slug nonetheless. Too bad they couldn't afford one more for us, but at this point in time, I'm pretty sure the faction we fight for is actively trying to get rid of us by ordering us to take as much useless risk as possible anyway. But it's still pretty interesting. Meh, anyway. Hey, it's been a while since the last time we heard this word. The beginning of this mission starts off really strong with a spectacular amount of action to offer to the player due to the insane amount of enemies present at the same time on screen. There's a lot of infantry stacked pretty much everywhere around the player, and can definitely make up for really fun carnage thanks to your boy being able to knife more than 2 people at the same time. Yeah, hey, score those points. Oh look, the garbage flame shot. Let's grab it anyway. Hey, this thing is still decent in the end. Look at them burning and screaming in agony. Come on, hey, the corpses are all burned up too. That's so much of a wholesome detail, really. Ah yes, all of this really makes me feel like a human being. And speaking of that, let's pause here for a second. This sequence right there, where you get the impression to wipe out at least 5% of Earth's entire population by just spamming 2 buttons, is and will be actually pretty impactful at the very end of the game. Hell, even all of the other stages could be said to give this same impression in a way, but I would like to use this one particular moment over the others because of how effectively I found it to encapsulate all the murder the player has been doing throughout the game in one single moment. And this brings me to one of the most important aspects of this mission, to act as a conclusion regarding the player's action in the story. And yes, I'm aware that the term conclusion is not the most appealing one to use in order to make it sound interesting. After all, a conclusion is most of the time just a simple, non-important summary as boring as a flashback in an anime reminding the viewer what just happened 10 minutes ago. But this one conclusion is thankfully a bit more useful than that, and has actually another two interesting purposes. One is to actively test the player on what he has been learning until now regarding the gameplay. Yeah, I know, it's pretty crazy. And the second one is to show him the end results of this game side of this mastery of the gameplay through the ending cutscene. Wow, I know how to explain things, that's good. But I promise it will make more sense in a minute. And in the meantime, let's do a quick recap of what type of scenarios from the previous level the player has actually faced again in this mission, aka the things I just talked about, the game takes the player on. This is a fucking mess of a script. Alright, and you know what? Because we are talking about comebacks and reoccurrences, let's enumerate them through the use of a boring list, once again. So, first, there's the importance of jumping and height advantages, with the path from the bottom being almost always the best solution. Sort of, a bit subjective, but come on. As in Mission 3. Then we get at the second most important points, and only points really, the use of invulnerability frames to better dodge missiles and projectiles, as we learned that in Mission 4. For me at least, of course, it depends. And the third one, to be, how do I put it, overall just better at the game, just being used to the game at this point. It's been 5 levels, so, I can't really explain that, it's just the experience, I know. Also, regarding the atmosphere, how is it now? Because we talked about the points, what's in it for the atmosphere? Is it as intense as the other levels? We know definitely that the music is a banger, and the beginning is definitely pretty hot to say the least. So this aspect is covered, but what about the other parts of the level? Are they just boring, and was it just the beginning extremely good? Well, I'm glad I asked myself that, because look at all of this shit that's coming next. And this is Mission 6, a fuckfest of everything thrown at the player and non-stop action out of an action movie with an awesome scripted scenes. I can't talk today. So yeah, ultimately, this level does an amazing job at encapsulating and highlighting the atmosphere and gameplay mechanics of the entire game through this map, mission, yeah. But now I would like to just briefly talk about the final encounter. The final big boss that, afterward it became a ridiculous character, serving as just a running gag in the Metal Slug series, but it's not a bad thing either. But this enemy, right here, that's the second time you see it, that appears to presumably be the leader of the bad guy army by the look of his attire, appearing before you for the second and final time, and this time in the heart of the enemy territory, while on top of that you can see the last of your ally Slug burning faintly in the distance, reminding you that you are truly are the last hope between peace and a world in total chaos, as you previously witnessed throughout the game. This is the moment you have been waiting for. This is the final showdown. And yes, I'm picking now the second person to make it sound like more personal. Nah, fuck, yeah, don't stand in front of him. Just shoot from below and never stay in front of his cannon, whether you are up there or down there. Always be on the lookout for sometimes tricky Gatling gun attacks. Spam the shoot up button while it's raining nukes, and try to take down as many little rockets when they start appearing to avoid being stuck in a corner just 2 seconds later. That's a really good boss. Really tanky and with a lot of different attacks that keep you on edge every time. No wonder it's also used again in Metal Slug 3. Still, just a little bit bullshit with the Gatling gun attack that can sometimes be extremely fast for no real reason, but hey, if you're struggling, just bring the slug next time and it becomes quite a fair fight. And by now, you know why. Oh, and don't forget to knife his ass when he falls. That's some well-deserved point right there. Final mission finally complete. Oh, wait, it's not over? And it's not just boring credits? Of course not. What do you think this is? Metal Slug 5 with a boring car bouncing around? I prefer watching the DVD logo trying to touch the corner of the screen over that. Come on, be real. Well, and here you goes. The final reward that I talked about previously. A cutscene depicting the outcome of what the player did throughout the game and summarizing it with a beautiful outside perspective on his actions. We are now no longer controlled or following the massacre of a righteous hero. We are not just but a paper plane, made and thrown by a soldier without an army anymore, flying freely throughout all of the stages one by one, passing by brutally dismembered corpses, wreck of vehicles, and even a civilian mourning a dead soldier. They are no longer depicted as harsh and cruel monsters following orders to terrorize the population, but just as what they always have been, men composed of flesh and blood. Okay, white blood, but still men with lives and personalities and no families too, apparently. Kind of feel bad, really. Anyway, this brief and somewhat realistic depiction of the war reminds us about the final outcome of the war in general, well, of any war really. Regardless of who is part of the victorious side, the loss of many human lives will always be one of the end results. This moment makes us, as the player, look back at the previous action we have done. This is even more emphasized by the reuse of the music from the first level, making us at first feel empowered and proud to have finally beaten the game, but slowly, as the music loses its intensity, while we continue to still look at those levels once filled to the brim with actions, noises and moving entities, for them to only be now literal graveyards, a curious feeling of calmness and somewhat of a nostalgic sadness can easily take hold of the player. Take a quick listen to this. But just after that moment, the music started rising again in rhythm, gradually returning back into its main chorus as the plane accelerates and flyby destroy the light slugs, highlighting the losses on both sides, before the plane finally heads and vanishes straight into a star-filled sky, announcing the end of this brief moment of respite and grievance, and how it is now time for us to look forward all of this, to learn from our mistake and not repeat them again in order to ultimately live and enjoy for the better the life forged by all of those sacrifices. Peace forever. Just kidding, the only thing coming next is Metal Slug 2. Looks like all of the deaths really paid off. Well, what an adventure this game was. An incredible trip full of adrenaline, frustration, and a search for personal improvement, ultimately leading to a feeling of satisfaction over personal accomplishment. I am aware lots of games, if not all of them, in a sense, want to satisfy the player the same way after having him invested so much time, effort, and money, and sometimes tears, into it. So I'm not saying this game is original because of that. Oh no, it's just doing it good. After all, everything has already been made, recreated, inspired of on already existing products, and in some instances done to death too. That's why I was just pleasantly surprised by this game that was able to create its own distinct identity by providing a fun, challenging, and thoughtful experience while just being, on paper, another 2D run and gun shooter similar to a lot of other games at the time. And hey, this type of logic can also apply to the games of nowadays too. This will explain how, for example, some games, even though they look extremely similar in aspect to some others belonging to the same genre, can gain as much or way more traction than their original inspirations by becoming their own thing in the end, because they are still able to provide an entirely different experience and feeling to the player. Isn't that right? FNF? Wow, I can't say it right. This is why, on a little side note, I think one of the most important things is not to judge games by only focusing separately on their gameplay or look, but by the ultimate feel they make the player experience when playing the game at any point, and most importantly, when closing the game and, or working away at the end. When we have to look back and finally understand the true, dare I say it, I mean, that's a bit cringe, but art and meaning behind it all, if there are any. The same logic if you rage quit a game, that can say a lot about the game too. But of course, it is way more complicated than that in the end, and thinking any longer about this idea keeps reminding me of some painful arguments I had in the past where people unironically say that Terraria was a copy of Minecraft. Oh god, yeah. I just wanted to highlight how this game is doing so well at being most mod games in our present time tries desperately to be unique and bring a little more light on this little gem of a game that really do deserves it in the end. Really. Thank you for listening to this essay, crazy talk, or whatever you want to call this. I'm happy you made it to the end and that you hopefully found it interesting, at least to some degree. Do not hesitate to tell me in the comments what you found funny, unfunny, distasteful, atrocious, and if possible, the reasons why. After all, every criticism is good criticism as long as there are arguments to back it up. And I greatly count on every one of them in order to improve myself and not commit the same mistakes again in the future. Anyway, that's the last time I use this word, I promise, by the way. See you around, and in the meantime, don't forget to dab in your shoulder while coughing. Take care, you all.